These two boxes of Rallyman are jam-packed with possibilities, and it's my intention to highlight all of the interesting things you can do with them. This is Shakedown. In today's Shakedown, we wonder what might have been and what may be worth revisiting from the Rallyman Pro rules. Despite having Pro in the title, Need for Speed Pro Street isn't exactly a showcase of professional racing, regardless of who is behind the wheel. Sure, it takes place on actual circuits rather than city streets for once, but that's not enough of a shake-up to the core gameplay, and after a long while of doing the same thing over and over again, you might want to change of pace. That's also true of Rallyman, hence all the various variant rules we've explored already, but it wasn't just the community who were working on the next step. A year or two after the release of GT was news of Rallyman Pro, a set of variant rules for seasoned drivers who wanted something more, and it's time we check them out. If we're digging up old rules, why not dig up an old forgotten track as well? Ingliston is still sort of in use outside Edinburgh Airport, but not by any modern championship. It'll be hosting our sunny single lap race today. If you're a regular Shakedown viewer or have been playing a lot of rallycross events, you'll be familiar with one of the pro rules already, and that's the pushing through rule when the track is chock full of cars in your way. Being blocked and having a way around it without having to miss a turn is really at the heart of these pro rules, but there are variant rules that we can implement that don't come from the RX expansion and involve fewer calculations to resolve. First up is the ability to break the speed limit with the Overspeed rule. Put simply, if you break a speed limit, you add a hazard to your turn for each gear over that speed limit you are, allowing you to put your car into places it shouldn't be at that speed, but at the risk of an earlier loss of control. Would you trade track position for an extra hazard? I think in some situations I might, yes, so we'll bear this rule in mind for our race. Next up is the over-rev ability. Ever found yourself blocked because you couldn't get up to speed to overtake a rival quick enough? The kind of situations where you really wish you had a boost die. I bet you have, because it's a common occurrence, especially when long spaces are involved, and this over-rev rule gives blocked cars a chance. By placing down a gear die as though it were a boost die, you're able to keep on racing, but by doing so you are guaranteed to take one gear die damage because of pushing your engine too hard. Again, is that a trade that you'd make in order to keep pace with the car ahead? I'm sure as the race gets closer and closer to a conclusion, you'd be more and more willing to take a bit of damage to get past an opponent. And again, we'll be looking out for moments when we can make use of the over-rev to get ahead. Important to note, however, that we can only use it to overtake and not at any point we fancy. I wonder what Rallyman would look like if everyone could boost in this way without a boost die. Probably an awful lot of pit stops to repair damage. Finally, while we've got the danger tokens out to track any overspeeding, we can make use of them to penalise anyone who loses control but doesn't take any damage tokens for doing so. The idea behind this rule is that while you can reorder your dice to lose control in a safer manner, you shouldn't be able to abuse this ability to gain any sort of advantage, which smart players will absolutely do if they can manage it. And so, anyone who escapes damage from a loss of control will start their next turn with a hazard as they wipe their brow and breathe a sigh of relief, assuming you can do any of that in a race helmet. Pro rules ought to have pro drivers to test them out, but we are instead opting for speed today as we go up against 5 medium difficulty NPCs, all in DT6s. No rerolls to worry about, we'll just be chucking a bunch of dice and making the best turn out of them, ideally making use of as many pro rules as we can. Let's see what they bring to the table. We find ourselves on the back row of the grid. Let's see what the cars ahead can do. The blue car wants to get through as much of the track as they can. Now, if they go into this space, normally the sharp corner turns the speed limit into a speed limit of 2. So they're going to go through in third, which is a use of the overspeed. So that gives them another hazard on top of the one they rolled for their gear 3 die. So they are at 2 hazards for the turn, but they are then able to go into fourth there and sacrifice the inside lane by going into 5th gear there. The purple car can't really match that. Hazards at the top half of its gearbox means that it is stuck on the corner in 3rd gear, and that was with the use of overspeed as well. The orange car has done pretty well. It's able to get all the way around the outside of the purple car in 5th gear. However, to do that, it must take 2 hazards for its turn for being 2 gears over the speed limit. That is not enough for it to lose control, so it sits around the outside in 5th gear. The green car is next, and they're going to sit in 5th gear right in the middle behind the purple car. We definitely want to be on the outside of the green car, otherwise there's no way through the corner thanks to the purple car. So let's plan our move backwards. We are going to go through the gears, a couple of coasts, and I think we're going to risk a flat out because I like a focus pull. Back of the napkin maths puts this at a 1 in 5 chance of losing control, and I've got that 1 in 5 chance of losing control. So we are currently crashing in 5th gear. I'm not going to reorder my dice to get around that. We got a -1 coast and a green flag. So we do take some damage. Therefore, we don't take a hazard on the next turn. But of course, going forward, we've got just the 1 coast die. Finally, the yellow car probably going to take our space if they can. Next round, blue car to go first. They can break down to 3rd gear, making use of the overspeed to give them 1 hazard for their turn. They can then coast out and go up through the gears, 4, 5, and then into 6th gear on the inside to defend it against the rest of us. Next up is the orange car. They are going to have to be in 3rd gear to overtake the purple car. Would they want to be in 3rd gear though? Because it's 2 spaces to get to that corner, and they wouldn't be able to put down 4th gear in order to get through it with an overspeed. So can they instead overspeed in 5th gear here? So that's 2 hazards for their turn, and then they could break down to 2nd gear like normal on the inside, come out in 3rd gear like that. They wouldn't be able to place down 4th gear. That would be their 3rd hazard for the turn. So they're going to finish there in 3rd gear, hopefully making it difficult for the cars behind. I think the green car is going to have to stop short. They can overspeed around the outside of the corner and then power all the way up to 6th gear. The yellow car then has got the opportunity to go into 6th gear alongside the green car. Would it want to? Let's see. Breaks down to 3rd gear, and I think they can coast. They can go into 4th gear like that, and again they wouldn't normally be able to place down 5th gear to come alongside. It's an overtaking space, so we can show off the over rev ability. They can place down gears 5 and 6 in this space in order to take a gear die damage. Now that is not exactly practical for them, but for demonstration purposes the yellow car has now got gear damage as it shows off the over rev ability. Now the purple car has got some problems. It is not able to use the pushing through rule because it can't get up to gear 7. It needs to be in a higher gear than anyone in front of it, and that is not happening. So the best the purple car could do is get up to 4th gear. And finally, we rejoin the track in gear 0. Next round, the blue car way out in front, into 4th gear for 1 hazard, and then into 5th gear for their 2nd hazard. They would like to have placed another coast die into that space there, but that would be their 3rd hazard for the turn, so they're not able to do that, and they sit there in 5th gear. The yellow car is next, and it has to take 1 hazard just to enter this next corner. It's got 1 hazard on its brake die to get down to 2nd gear. So that's 2 hazards for the turn. And in order to exit the corner, it needs to take a 3rd hazard and indeed place down its 4th hazard. So there's absolutely no way of it getting out of that corner. It is stuck there in 2nd gear. The best that the green car can do is break down to 2nd gear for 2 hazards. It can't use the overspeed to get up to 3rd gear. That would be its 3rd hazard for the turn. Nor can it make use of the pushing through rule. It is stuck behind the orange car in 2nd gear. The purple car is going to join this train of cars ahead. The orange car then is the only car that can threaten the blue car, who has raced ahead with this lead. They can break down to 1st gear and then come into 2nd gear, and from there they can try to make use of better dice. They can go through in 4th there and emerge in 6th gear here on the inside and 2nd on the road with a chance to jump the blue car into the next hairpin. And we are going to go flat out on a 1, 2 and coast. Next round, the orange car to go first to try to make life difficult for the blue car ahead. So they're going to break down to 4th gear like that. They are wanting to overtake. They would have to use the overspeed to come on the inside, and that would give them another hazard. So I think instead they want to go on the outside, which means extending their turn a little with a coast die. From there, they can't really do anything else. They could break down to 2nd gear if they want to crash in every way possible. They're going to finish in 5th gear, having exhausted their options. The blue car then needs to come alongside them in 5th gear, and they can break down into 1st gear with 2 hazards. They have the option of breaking down to 2nd gear using the overspeed, and that will only cause them to take 1 hazard. So that's better for them, because then they can go into gear 3 for their 2nd hazard and then coast. They won't be able to place down gear 4. That would be their 3rd hazard. So the blue car finishes in 3rd gear. The yellow car has turn order, but they won't be able to place down all of their gears. So let's get them as far away from this trouble as they can. Into 2nd, into 3rd, into 4th, and they won't be able to place anything else. They get to block up that corner in 4th gear. The green car is next. They are stuck around the outside in 4th gear. First car behind is the purple car. They're going to defend the inside from us. Orange to go first, as it again tries to get the jump on the blue car. It needs to brake all the way down to either 1st or 2nd gear. It can do 2nd in order to save on the hazards. So that's no hazards from the dice, 1 hazard from the overspeed. It can go into 3rd gear like that. It can go into 4th gear up there. It can't place down 5th gear because that would be a 3rd hazard, but it can coast like that in 4th gear. The yellow car finishes its turn in a dangerous position. The green car then can, if it wants, go into 6th gear here. The purple car has a couple of hazards towards the end of its gearbox. It's going to break down to 3rd gear to respect the speed limit and then coast out like that. Could get up to 6th, but to do so requires it to come through the outside like that. The alternative was to overspeed and then take too many hazards for the turn. It is going to finish there on the inside in 6th gear. I think we're about to see an almighty crash somewhere up ahead. So we're going to play things safe in 3rd gear. Finally, the blue car, who is also in 3rd gear, but way out front, gets their turn. They are going to have to go up to 4th gear in order to come alongside the orange car. They can break down to 2nd gear without issue. They can coast through the corner like that. They can come out in 3rd there. They won't be able to do anything else because of using their 4th gear at the start of their turn. What carnage will unfold on this turn then? The yellow car has to hope that all of its brakes are good in order to get down to 2nd gear. Just the 1 hazard on its brake dice, but there's another hazard for overspeeding through this gear 1 corner. So the best that it can do is come out the other side and sit there in 2nd gear in the long space. Next up is the purple car. They have a little more wiggle room. They can get down to 5th gear like that before breaking down into, let's see, probably 1st gear, because there is a hazard on gear 2. So they're obeying the speed limit. They are then coming out into 2nd gear there. They can coast past the yellow car and they can get up to 4th gear and protect the inside, I think. The green car is next, and we would really like them to crash if they can, but they are not going to. Into the middle for a fourth gear finish of their own. Next up is the orange car. Can they get past the blue car? They might be able to, you know. They're in fourth, so they can drop all the way down to first and then coast through the inside. They can make use of their over rev in order to get into third gear, using their gear 2 as a kind of boost. From there, they can overspeed in fourth gear in a gear 3 corner, and then they can come out in fifth gear like that. One hazard, a fifth gear finish, and the blue car looks set to win this race from pole position. We are in third gear, and I would like to end my turn in fifth gear. We've only got the one coast die to do it, so we have to be in third there, fourth there, and fifth there around the outside. That's looking pretty good. I've got loads of focus, so let's play it safe and roll one by one. We are blank so far. We are blank all the way through. I could have gone flat out as we storm through the field to finish in fifth gear. No worries for the blue car whatsoever as they finish first. Around Ingliston, the orange car can also cross the finish line. I'm going to have a bit of a Hail Mary. We are going to brake all the way down to first gear from fifth gear. We're then going to coast into second gear there, third gear there, overspeed in fourth gear there, and then emerge in fifth gear like that. That is what I want to do. I think we're going to be spending a lot of focus in order to do it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 focus in order to secure that first braking maneuver. Let's risk the rest then. We are good into second gear. We have a hazard on gear 3, so that's our first hazard. We would take another hazard for the turn just by daring to go into this space. Do we want to risk the roll? That's not technically in the dice tray. We have gotten gear 4. We can therefore pay our last 5 focus in order to secure a fifth gear finish. We've come from the back to potentially get a third place finish. The purple car can do nothing more than hit the apex in third gear. Is it enough to keep the green car behind? Let's find out. They need to break down to, I think first, they can do a similar thing. No hazards, however, on their roll. So they can get into third gear around the outside for their first hazard. They can get into fourth gear for their second hazard. They won't be able to place down gear 5 to come alongside us. That would be their third hazard for the turn. So one hazard from overspeed, one hazard from the die puts them in third gear around the outside. Not enough for turn order against purple, but they do keep the pace up. It wouldn't be a shakedown without an error, would it? The green car should have been in fourth gear here, where it would have taken turn order from purple and gone on to finish in fourth place. But that's if we ignore my glaring error of a free space of movement all the way back here. Finishing on the podium wasn't the aim, of course, nor was following all the rules, technically, as long as we've learned something about the pro rules. So, what do we think? I certainly made use of the overspeed ability to make some creative paths through the circuit, and I think on that basis alone it's worth another go to see what's possible. It's a simple enough rule to implement, it gives you a risk of a crash rather than an immediate crash, and sometimes a little twist on a rule is all you need for a different kind of race. O'Daly has introduced the idea of high downforce, allowing you to go through corners in higher gears in the LMP prototype cars, and I'm sure others have had similar ideas to modify the classes to give you similar abilities. So even if you don't implement this rule for every car in every race, you could explore this rule for a specific car class instead. The over-rev ability wasn't used too often and was used more for demonstration purposes today than anything, but it did always feel like a rarer event in the first place. To be caught in that awkward space of being too close to the car ahead to overtake them usually comes about because of offset turns or some deliberately smart blocking attempts. So to have an option to pass a car at the cost of a gear die damage token is also probably something to look into some more. I wonder how both the Overspeed and Overrev abilities would work with the GT4 and especially GT5 class though. Both are fairly zippy through the corners before they'll feel the need for Overspeed, and the GT5 already has a boost die to make use of for attack and defense. A die that in GT doesn't even have a damage token, so you won't be losing it at any point either, surely making Overrev even rarer. Though I tried my best to crash and draw no damage, we can only speculate on whether getting a danger token for your next turn is a good enough penalty for those who escape damage in a loss of control. You can argue that it makes some thematic sense to be forced to take things a little more carefully after narrowly escaping damage, but you did actually crash, and you have actually started either off track or in gear 0, whether you took damage or not. Is that not already a penalty? If crashing as safely as possible is an art form, and the damage bag is made up of tokens that may or may not damage me, should I be further penalised if I happen to only draw green or yellow flags? I can only directly affect how many damage tokens I have to draw, not what's printed on them, and if it's in my power to draw fewer, then it's also in my opponent's power to draw fewer when they lose control as well. In theory at least. My only advantage comes from knowing how to crash in the first place. So, thought of another way, you could have the experts around the table take that danger token to help rein them in, or the cars at the front to help slow them down, but beyond that it feels a little like my initial reaction to the red line rule. Why do we need it? Now, while I rarely show the red line rule off, I've since come to make use of it when it seems sensible to make use of. Not in every race, but in those where a car is likely to hit top gear consistently, around an oval or on a lengthy straight for example. Elsewhere on twistier circuits, I don't feel the need for it, and that's the point of these pro rules, that they are some additional variants that you might like to try should you feel the need for something extra, and are not rules that are imposed upon every single race. Sadly, the pro rules never made it past version 0.1. The next update to the state of play was that Holy Grail games were no longer in business. The Rallyman community doesn't need to channel their focus towards a specific thing. We're quite capable of creating all manner of rules to play this game in new ways, but I still wonder what we've lost by not seeing these pro rules develop, and what such an effort could have led to for Rallyman down the line. Are the Overrev and Overspeed rules of interest to you? How might you have changed the way they work? The pro rules discussion thread is still on the Board Game Geek forums for you to read and respond to, and who knows, maybe the community will pick them up, dust them off, and make a pro-am set of their own. I, for one, am looking forward to see what you come up with.